having been involved in discussions and debates about tax reform over the years, what I would hope first is we would come up with a system that would have the elasticity to grow as the state's population grows, as the economy grows. The current tax system that we have does not have that elasticity. In fact, it's constantly contracting. We had a briefing a couple of days ago that showed how the sales tax had become an increasingly higher percent of the state's tax collections, and the imbalance in it and various income taxes, whether it's corporate income tax or the individual income tax, and the various fees and other things that we've added on over the years. Of course, the most popular discussion now is about broadening the base, lowering the tax, and that would involve taxing services, since we are a service-oriented society now as opposed to a goods-oriented society. But that has a lot of implications to it as well. And so what I'm hoping as we move into the discussions that we will adopt a system, if we reform in any serious way, that basically is revenue neutral on a current basis, except if there's something critical that we have to do, that it builds it into that, but that can grow in a proportional way in the future. Some of the proposals that I've heard would have radical changes in taxes on services. Currently we tax, I think, maybe 35, 36 separate services. And that has evolved since 1931 when we did the current tax code. But I think the average number of services taxed around the country in other states is roughly 56, 58 different services. Some of the proposals that we've had floating around the General Assembly would tax 150 some services, and I can tell you that's not going to fly. One of the things that I think is critical is to know the history of our current tax system. As it was envisioned even 80 years ago, if it was still being administered on the basis that it was created 80 years ago, it would be a sufficient tax system. But we have so many exclusions and exemptions to this system that was created 80 years ago. The same thing in the early 90s when we tried to reform some of the tax structure so that it would be elastic enough to keep up with population growth and demand increases. Once we got it in place, we came back and started doing exceptions, doing exemptions, excluding industries, putting caps on it. And so the system as it was initially envisioned can't perform when you do all of those exceptions and exemptions in it. As you know, there's so much money involved in these various industries, and whoever is taxed or wherever the burden is shifted, that they will have high-powered spokespeople out advocating either for or against somebody else being taxed as opposed to them. So I think that it will be a battle royale, and a lot of it will depend on the governor's resolve. I think that the governor will play a major role in the way that this tax reform looks, although the General Assembly will be the final decider, well, at least almost the final decider, since the governor can veto anything that we might do. But if the governor steps forward and leads on a specific tax reform package, I think that there's a substantial likelihood that major components of that package would be adopted, because he would, I don't know whether, well, in fact, I'm sure that Governor McCrory has not seen the full weight of the lobbying corps on any particular issue, at least not state issues. It will be tremendous, but I think that the legislature, with the governor's leadership, can overcome some of that resistance and come up with a 21st century tax structure for North Carolina.